Hello, and welcome back to the French Galaxy. Today we are going to be talking about the subjunctive. So, get your notes, and let's get started.
Life, not for honor, but for you. In my time, there'll be no one.
So, when it comes to understanding the subjunctive, we can use the subjunctive for honestly a really wide range of things. So, I have a little acronym here that I found that honestly is pretty useful at explaining the subjunctive. So that acronym is weirdo, right? So starting off with W, the subjunctive helps us describe a want, right? So we're using verbs like vouloir, that sort of thing, right? Helps us to describe a want, all right? Like je veux que ça soit whatever, right? For our E, we got emotions, right? So W we got want, E we got emotions. So, I'm sad that. I am, happy that. I am this, I am that, I'm furious that. I am, horrified that, that sort of thing. So again, we got want, emotions, and now we have impersonal feelings. Now, honestly, I was kind of confused when I was learning about this too. When it came to the impersonal feelings, I was like, what does that mean? But impersonal feelings, all that means is that if like before like in the phrase, right? Take for example il faut, right? Or like, il faut or, c'est or whatever. If it starts with that, it's an impersonal feeling, right? It's just like a thing that kind of is, right? You could say like, oh, c'est dommage qu'il qu'il soit qu'il fasse oh my fuck. So when it comes to actually doing the subjunctive, there's a few things we have to consider. Well, actually, not a few things, more like six things, 7, 8 things we have to actually consider. So I got this acronym off the internet called weirdo. Weirdo, like someone's a weirdo, right? With all the things that go into, subjunctive, along with I threw in some considerations, whatever. Let's go over them. So, starting off with our W of weirdo, we have a want. So that's any real desire, right? Like I want this, I prefer that. I desire this, I desire that. That is going to be that's going to be when we use our subjunctive. So a good example of that would be, let's say for example, je préfère qu'il soit rouge. For whatever reason, if you somehow prefer red people, you just want red people. You just I don't know, you like red people, like paint red. I don't know why, but that's a desire, right? Je désire que mes ongles soient bleu. I desire that I want that my fingernails are blue because you want to paint them blue. Whatever you want. Any want, any desire, preference, there you go. Use subjunctive with some considerations, which I'll go over. But again, generally, it's a part of subjunctive. Moving on, of course, we got emotion. So that's I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm scared, I'm furious. Anything at all, any emotion whatsoever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't. It really doesn't. Any emotion, okay? If let's say, for example, you are happy, right? Je suis content qu'il est arrivé. Oh, sorry, qu'il soit arrivé. Je suis content qu'il soit arrivé because this is subjunctive. You wouldn't use être. Oh, well, you would use être, of course, but you'd use the subjunctive version of être, which is, for je, or more like he, it'd be soit, soit, which I'll go over the whole subjunctive être in in a bit. But for now, let's just keep going with weirdo. So again, emotions, right? If I'm sad, for example, I could say, je suis triste qu'il soit mort, right? I'm sad that he is dead. Je suis triste qu'il soit mort. I'm sad he's dead. Or Je suis furieux qu'il soit là. I hate this guy. I hate that he's here. Je suis furieux qu'il soit là. I hate him. That sort of thing. Moving on, of course, well, to review, we got, again, our wants, our emotions. Now we have our impersonal feelings. Now, what is an impersonal feeling? At first, honestly, I didn't even know either. Like, it kind of didn't really make sense. Like, I've never heard of an impersonal feeling, really. But, anyways, so an impersonal feeling, it's going to be something that just kind of is, right? Like, you could just say, like, or for example, oftentimes, impersonal feelings in French, it starts with il est, or, il faut, or just il in general, or c'est, because it doesn't really refer to, like, a specific person or something like that, but it's like, you know what I mean? Either way, still, those examples would be something like, c'est dommage qu'il pleuve, right? Il faut qu'il soit. Il faut qu'il soit. It's necessary that it be. There you go. That's an impersonal feeling. There you go. Another one, of course, moving on. So we have WEI, so we have our wants, emotions, and personal feelings. And now we have our requests and recommendations. So that's going to be stuff like, demander, and that's going to be like recommander for, recommendations, that sort of thing. So if we want to say, like, let's say we have an amazing student, je recommande qu'il soit avancé, something like that. I want that he be advanced, right? I want that he be advanced because he's so good at whatever he does, or, just whatever you want. It's, again, requests, recommendations, use subjunctive, okay? Of course, then we got our doubt and denial, right, for our D. So again, we have our WEIRD, doubt and denial, right? So if we can't believe something happened, like, oh, ce n'est pas possible qu'il soit là. Ce n'est pas possible. I told him that he can't be here. It's impossible that he's here. I told him he can't be here. That sort of thing. Or like, our doubts, like, je doute qu'il vient, je doute qu'il vienne, je doute qu'il vienne. He's pretty flaky, so, je doute qu'il vienne, doute qu'il vienne. There you go. Next up, of course, we have our opinion, right, to end it off. So we started with, again, our wants, emotions, impersonal feelings, requests, doubts, and denial. Finally, opinion, okay? So, that's like, c'est dans mon avis, qu'il soit beau. Dans mon avis, qu'il soit beau. C'est dans mon avis qu'il soit beau. It's in my opinion that, he's beautiful. It's just my opinion that he's beautiful, right? Or just whatever, again, whatever you want to say, that's your opinion, okay? It's like you're giving your political opinion or something, like, whatever. I don't know. Like, let's say a made-up country, so let's say the United States of, I don't know, cheese, right? C'est dans mon avis que les États-Unis du fromage sont soit que les États-Unis du fromage soient très très stupides. C'est dans mon avis. Voilà. Like that sort of thing, right? That's where we would use as a subjunctive. So moving on to our very special considerations, though. Very special. You might have heard me say, well, you probably did, que. You have to have que. I can't even think of an example of the subjunctive where you don't even use que. I genuinely cannot. That's how important it is. Like, if you do not have que, it's probably not a subjunctive. Okay? Let's just be honest. It's probably not a subjunctive. So get that out of your head that you don't think you have to have que. You have to have que. Okay? Very, very important that you have que. Okay? Plus, you need to have, like two different subjects, right? It can't just be like, je sois beau aujourd'hui. Aujourd'hui je sois beau. That doesn't work. You have to have the two different subjects. You could be, je suis content que je sois beau, but you cannot just say je sois beau. You cannot say, il soit là. Like, elle soit là. Like, you could say je doute qu'elle soit là. You could say je doute qu'il soit là, right? That sort of thing. But again, you have to have two different subjects. You have to have que, and you have to have something that is either a want, emotion, impersonal feeling, request, doubt, or opinion. That sort of thing. All right? So for my example, right? Je suis content qu'il soit arrivé. Right? What does that mean? I'm happy that he's here. I'm happy that he's arrived. Right? Okay? Stay with me? This falls under the emotion. Okay? Because I am happy that he's here. And again, look. Again, I got my emotion, right? Content. And then I, of course, have my que. And then, of course, il, that's my other subject, right? So my first subject is I, because, well, the sentence is about me, really. I am happy that he is here. So again, we got our emotion, right? We got our part of the weirdo. We got emotion. And then we, of course, got, our subject, that's me. And we got our other subject, which is il, because I'm talking about him. I'm happy he's here. He's my best friend. I'm happy he's here. Je suis content qu'il soit arrivé. There you go. That's how you conjugate the subjunctive. Now, I will go over, in a second, I will go over how, or just what the conjugations for être look like in subjunctive, along with avoir, because those are the most two types of, those are two most common subjunctives, right, that people typically use. Now, of course, there is subjunctive, unfortunately, for every single word in the French language, every single verb in the French language. So that does mean that you have to learn for every word, or at least you should, you have to learn almost every single different spelling for every single different French verb in the subjunctive, which, again, it does suck, but it's just something you have to do if you want to learn the language and learn to speak it correctly. Now, I will say though, most people, like, unless they're like a Parisian, they'll, a Parisian will, like, if you're talking, like, if you're speaking and you're not speaking correctly, I mean, they'll say something. They're Parisians, who's to blame, right? That's just what they do. But for the most part, if you say something like a common one, right, for example, would be like venir, right? To say venir in the subjunctive form, that'd be like, je doute qu'il vienne, right? That's how you would say it. It's like Vienne, right? As opposed to just how it typically is spelled, right? And it's also pronounced a little differently. But if you say like je doute qu'il vienne, they'll understand what you said. Like, having the subjunctive, having it be perfect every time isn't going to happen, especially if you're new. But if you're in the ballpark, I would say not even in the ballpark. If you're on, like, I don't know, third base, they'll understand what you mean. If you say something that's completely out of the park, then, like, they'll probably ask you, could you repeat that, or could you say that again, that sort of thing. But anyways, all of this takes time. So if you don't get it in the first hour, first 10 minutes, first day, week, month, year, that's fine. All these things take time, right? You've been learning probably English for all of your life, so makes sense. Don't rush it. So let's now go over, être and avoir in the subjunctive, along with a few other examples. So when it comes to conjugating être with, in the subjunctive, it's going to look like this. So there we go, perfect. So it's going to look like this. So for je, we got sois, que je sois, whatever. Okay, we got tu, we got que tu sois, right? Ils, elles, on, que, qu'il soit, qu'elle soit, qu'on soit, that sort of thing, right? Again, just for tu and je, it's spelled the exact same, S-O-I-S. For il, elle, on, however, you're replacing that S with a T, right? With nous, nous soyons, vous, vous soyez, et il, ils, and elles, il soit ou elle soit. There you go. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. That's how they're spelled. We already spoke about how they're used, so let's go over avoir. So when it comes to conjugating avoir with subjunctive, it's going to look like this. So we got a. So for an example of like how what this would sound like in a sentence would be something along the lines of, let's take for example, je suis content que j'ai rencontré ma femme. Voilà. And as you'll notice, you'll be like, wait, didn't you just say j'ai, like just a I, with the apostrophe in your J? Yeah, honestly, it does sound like it. That's the thing with a lot of the subjunctive verbs, actually, in their proper conjugations as subjunctive, is that they sound exactly, or at least almost exactly, like how they typically do just in regular, just in like the present tense, or, not present tense, but, or yeah, in the like present tense. Like, you know what I mean? Which is honestly pretty nice because oftentimes you'll use the subjunctive and like when you're not even like trying to, I mean, you just do, right? Like take for example, take fair for example, right? Well, technically let me give you a different example. Um, take veneer, right? If we are to talk about veneer in the subjunctive, for like if we're talking about he, for example, like I doubt he'll come, you would say je doute qu'il vienne, right? As opposed to je doute qu'il vient, which I mean like it's a very small difference. So if you're speaking kind of quick, like you could say oh je doute qu'il vient. You could say that and then just like not even realize that you were supposed to say vienne as opposed to vient. Like like genuinely, like you might not even notice it happening. It just does, right? Which is honestly nice. Anyways, to continue, AI, sorry, not AI, AIE for je, que j'ai, tu, que tu es, right? So they're both spelled the same exact, like before. Ils, elles, on, AIT. Nous ayons, right? We've got the light here. There we go. Vous ayez, and then ils, elles, aient, qu'il aille. And that's how you conjugate the subjunctive for avoir. Now, when it comes to, again, I'm going to say this again because I'm gonna go over like 2 or 3 words just of like just 2 or 3 different verbs in the subjunctive. But for the most part, not for the most part, for all of it really, again, every single word in every single verb in French has a different spelling for subjunctive. I mean, sometimes they're like the same, just about, but for the most part, they're all different. They're all different. So if you're learning a French verb, even though it's not necessarily required, because sometimes you can get away with it, because again, a lot of French verbs, when it comes to subjunctive, they have a similar spelling in like basically the same pronunciation. It's just a small difference, just a very small, minute difference that makes it subjunctive. But again, for the most part, you can like get away with it, right? I'm not saying you should. Like as if we're talking about like from a perspective of let's say a teacher. I am not saying that you need to or you can or you should rather you should cheat and just hope you're doing it right. Which I mean for the most part like when you're talking to someone and you're learning the language, you're just going to be hoping that you're doing it right the whole time basically. But what I am saying is just try your best to like you learn a word. I use an app called Va te faire conjuguer. Like it's yeah, Va te faire conjuguer looks like this. Let me get it up. Oh my gosh. Looks like that, right? Va te faire conjuguer looks like that. VT whatever. Anyways, in that app, I can click on, it just shows up, it gives me a list of words I can search up words to, and it gives me like the conjugation for that word in every single verb tense, including like the literary verb tenses, which I'm not even going to go over because like oh my gosh, it's a lot really. But again, of every single verb tense ever, right? For every single verb or most verbs for the most part, right? When it comes to if you guys ever encounter like a French verb that is like it's like slang, it's like a like take for example kiffer, KIFFER. That's like a slang term to mean like to like oh ce sandwich oui je le kiffe, oh je kiffe des bacon egg and cheese, whatever you want to say, right? Um if you find something like that and you're wondering how to, oh, how do I use it in the subjunctive, you know, like if you want to say, I don't know, like, je suis content que je kiffes, whatever, you know, just say, je suis content que je kiffe ce sandwich, you know, ça coûte bien, ça coûte bien, yeah. But like, just make it up at that point, because like it's kiffe, it's like this term hasn't been around for at least to my knowledge, you know, as an American who kind of speaks French, whatever, you know. But this word hasn't been around for like at least to my knowledge more than like 20 years. Honestly, I think it just came around. Like this hasn't been a word until like maybe the past 10 years ago or maybe a little later or sooner, right? So when it comes to like words that you absolutely don't know, just take a guess, you know, honestly. Like how again like veneer, you know, for subjunctive for, you know, he is, you know, vien, right? Just take a guess. Just if a word that you've come across, like take, you know, parler for example. I'm going to be honest. Again, there's a lot of words in the subjunctive that I just don't know. I just don't know. I'm going to assume that like, you know, I think it is honestly. I looked at it a few times. But for parler for example, you know, parler, um the subjunctive form of that is probably just parle. It's probably just exactly what it is in the present tense. It's probably just exactly what it is. Let me look it up right now. Here, let's do a little live experiment. Going down to the subjunctive. Exactly. I was correct. See? I'm not sure if you can see this, but for the subjunctive, like that, it's exactly the same. They're spelled exactly the same. There's no difference between them. That's what I'm talking about. A lot of times you will speak in the subjunctive before you even learn the subjunctive because the like a huge portion like veneer is one of those weird examples because well, you know, veneer is like an irregular verb, but for the most part a lot of verbs that you'll use will have the same exact spelling, you know, in the subjunctive. They'll have the same exact spelling, which is like kind of like really? You wouldn't think so, but it is, which is neat. Considerations. I hope you learned something today. Alright, so that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you for joining me in the French Galaxy. You know, go check out some of the other videos on, well, really anything that involves French. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to blast off again into the galaxy, and I'll see you later.
Life, not for